In the previous few videos, we've been learning a lot of stuff. Like we learned about TCP, how that connection is established, and how HTTP is built on TCP, how it's protected by SSL and TLS, right? We've learned all of this, but where exactly is all of this used? Like where do you use all of this? And the best use case for this are APIs. And APIs are something that enable us to share information. So what happens is you have a server and a client, the web client. And instead of the client and the web server being tightly coupled or being part of the same software, think of as the front end being a separate software and the back end being a separate software. So you'll have the front end, and let's say you have a user that's calling another server. Now, this server actually is the front end server. And you've seen technologies like React.js, like AngularJS, right? All of those are front-end technologies, and the user actually makes a call to that particular server, and this server is actually making a call to the backend server. The backend server, you've seen technologies like Golang, Node.js, Rust, right? All of these technologies are backend technologies. Now, so what happens? How does this exchange actually take place? What the backend does is backend makes available a URL, and the front end actually just calls that URL. And the URL actually creates something called as decoupling between the front end and the backend. That means the backend is only responsible for ensuring that whatever information that the backend has access to via a database is available on that URL, and the front end does not interact directly with the backend, actually interacts just with the URL, and the URL is the layer that's being used to interact with the backend instead. Now, there are multiple different advantages of this approach, and I first want to help you visualize what the URL will actually look like. So this is what the URL actually looks like. So you see, you have the usually API on a subdomain of a website. So let's say if you go to google.com or googlemaps.com, they'll have a separate API URL available to you. You also have something called as versioning. So you have the version of the API that you're using and the endpoint. So the users in this case is endpoint. Now, this can change. So there could be products, there could be invoices, it could be users in this case, which is the users, right? So there could be multiple different things, multiple different endpoints. And all of these endpoints are available on the same API. Okay, and this URL basically is the API. Now, like I mentioned, you have it on a subdomain because it just makes it clear and consistent. But even if you don't have it on the subdomain, it's completely all right. Okay, so let's understand what APIs enable us to do, right? With APIs, the first thing that happens is the decoupling of the front end and back end. What does that mean? So earlier, right, in the era of technologies like PHP and Ruby on Rails, the front end and back end used to be tightly coupled. That means that the front end had information of how things were actually implemented at the backend side. In fact, they were part of the same software. The front end and back end were part of the same software. They were tightly coupled, and both the softwares need knowledge of implementation at each other's ends. They both had knowledge of how the other was implemented. So you have to run the front end and back end on the same server. So imagine you have a server, and the front end and back end are running on the same server. But now what we're doing is we're going to be running backend and front end on two different individual servers. Or we can run on them on the same server but in different Docker containers, or we could run them on two different servers. All of these three are possible if we just decouple the front end and back end. But if it's not decoupled, you'll always have to run them on the same server. Now, you might wonder, what's the benefit of running them on different servers? Why did we have to invent all of these new technologies to actually decouple the front end and back end? Why did we have to build this API thing, which is like a URL, to decouple the front end and back end just so that we could run them on different servers? Now, there are many benefits from that, so let's look at them one by one. So I wanted to share something really interesting with you. A few months back, I started running an advanced system design cohort, which is specifically meant for people with industry experience who want to break into engineering leadership positions. So if you want to be a director of engineering, VP of engineering, or want a CXO title, you'd want to know a lot more about system design from the application perspective. And just the basics of system design, DSA, and coding will not cut it. You'll need to understand systems from end to end. You'll need to become an expert at architecting systems, understanding how things scale, and how to plan better for bigger, much more scalable products. And this is what we break down in my 3-month advanced system design cohort. There are 20 people already in the cohort. Some of them even have 25 years of experience in the industry. So if you think you've hit the limit in your system design learning and you want to take things to the next level and deeply connect with people who are just like you, people with great industry experience and exposure wanting to move on to the leadership positions, you might want to check out my cohort. The link for the form is in the description of this video. Fill it up, we'll check if you're a good fit, and then we'll set up a call with you, and then we'll take things forward. Now let's get back to the video. Now, loosely coupled front end and back end look like this. So the front end is in React, the back end is in Node.js. Both the softwares need no knowledge of implementation at each other's ends. That means that a different team could be working on the front end and a different team could be working on the back end. They don't need any knowledge of how that functionality is implemented at the back end side. And this is a great thing. So you can have someone who doesn't need to learn backend, someone who doesn't need to learn front end. They can both work in the same team, but on different parts of the software. So that is benefit number one. And the other benefit is that we can run them on two different servers. This helps us with scalability, because if you run this on a different server, the first thing is you are able to scale things easily. You're also able to create something called as separation of concern. And you're also able to directly enhance the availability of the software, because even if the backend goes down, the front end, which is, let's say, a social media app showing lists of friends and updates, can still keep functioning with stale data even if the backend is down. The other benefit is standardized format for consumption of data. So imagine you have an iPad, a laptop, and an Apple Watch, all wanting some information from the server. Now, the best part is they can all request for the information from the same server without having to have their own implementations of different types of backend. The same backend server can be used by all three of them just because of the fact that they're actually making all their requests to that one URL API that I showed you. But the watch and the laptop and the iPad can consume the data in a different way because they actually have something called as pagination, and different clients. By client, I mean the laptop, iPad, and the Apple Watch. They can send different parameters for the page and limit. So for example, the watch can only show 3 entries at any given point of time. So it will send the limit to be 3. And the laptop can actually show 5 entries. So it will send the limit as 5, whereas the desktop can actually show 10 different elements on the same page because it has more real estate to show. So then it can send 10 as the limit. So what's happening here is that everyone can consume the same exact API, same exact URL link, but they can consume the data in a different way because they have control over the parameters that they send to the URL. Now, the third benefit is you can serve your software at scale to other systems. Now, imagine there are other companies that want to access your data or your backend functionality. And all they have to do now is connect to your API. And this is how companies like Stripe or Google Maps are built, right? They're just APIs. So they say that we have built all this functionality. You don't have to build it yourself. So you can be an independent SaaS product or another company, and you can just access our information via our API, and you don't have to build payment gateways or maps information on your own. Now let's look at another advantage, which is defining boundaries in the backend. Now, the backend doesn't have to be constrained. We don't have to have the entire backend on one server, right? We can actually have microservices. Now, I know you don't know a lot about microservices, and this is probably too early to be talking about microservices, but just imagine that what if you could divide your software into multiple small parts and place them all on different servers instead of having the entire functionality of the backend on one huge server. You have, for example, you'll have orders, users, payment, products, and invoices, all of the functionality on one server. Instead of this, you actually have it on multiple different servers so that you increase the availability of the services. That means you increase the uptime, and also you enhance the scalability of each of these services individually because you now have more control and separation of concern over all these services. So what you now have are 5 individual different microservices, like the order, user, payment, products, and invoices microservices. They can all interact via API calls with each other. So this helps define boundaries in the backend. That means there was no way for us to be able to divide the backend into multiple different microservices. Now we do, because now we can expose APIs, and each of these microservices can interact with each other via these APIs. Now, APIs are of many different types. You have REST APIs, you have gRPC, GraphQL, SOAP, webhooks, and WebSockets. We'll look at all of these different types of API categories in the upcoming videos.